Thanks for tuning in to Stark Reality. Financial empowerment on the road to personal freedom. My name is Gregory Starks. I'm your host. And we hope and pray that you get something out of this episode of Stark Reality. Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for watching. I want to thank you all who watch Stark Reality. This episode is the first episode. It's going to be buying your first house. So congratulations on making the life decision to invest in your financial future. Today on Stark Reality, I'm going to talk about what it's like to buy your first home. Buying a home can be a long, stressful process. It can be a rewarding process as well. But if you've never gone through the process and you want to take that step, and at some point, I'm going to go over how it works. Now, some believe that buying a home is an investment. Well, that depends on a few factors. The number one factor is timing. If you bought a house, say, in 1973, and you still have it today, and you're talking maybe a 30-year mortgage on it. For example, something like that may have cost you like $37,000. At the end of that 30-year mortgage, now I'm pretending that you didn't pay it off early, or you didn't do a reverse mortgage or something like that, or you didn't have to put the house up for something else. But roughly in the year 2000, that house would have been worth about $170,000. That's an increase of $132,500. So in some cases, it is an investment, but you also have to take into effect and account for the interest that you pay. So that is going to change things up. It's also going to be based on maybe your location. If you buy a home somewhere where it's emerging, then the property value is probably going to go up. If there's investment in that area, the property value is probably going to go up. If you buy a house in an area that's got little investment, at some point the housing market is going to decrease. You've got a lot of renters where you live at. That's going to decrease the value. Also, you got to think about home repairs. You got to think about fixing a roof maybe at some point. So you're going to put money into it, and you're going to make a lot of trips to the hardware store to fix little small things here and there over time. You got to landscape your yard. You got to think about maintenance for that. So then if you add other things like swimming pools and that kind of stuff, then your insurance goes up. So you can look at a home as an investment if it does increase in value, but you might not necessarily make money off of it unless it's like a rental property or something to that nature. In that case, it is an investment because you put money in to make money, and it makes you money immediately. But your house doesn't pay. But that's all cool and that's all fine, Dan. Another thing you have to think about is the price that you're paying for it. The price that you pay today, is that the best price you can get on that home? Is the market at its peak and it's not coming down again? If you buy the house at the peak, then you don't have any room for increased value. Now, if you get a good deal on it and if you buy the house low, then in that case, you got a lot of potential for growth and a lot of opportunity. So it depends on where you're at on the price. You have to gauge the market. You have to see where everything's at. You have to see, is this an emerging market? Is this a declining market? What are the schools like in that area? People usually, when the education system is good, people are willing to pay more to put their kids in a good school, in a good area. So I'm just going to go over a few things. I'm not going to really talk as much about the value of the home as much as the process of buying a home. So I'm going to go through a few steps, and I'm going to tell you all the things you need to take into account when you're thinking about buying your first home. Okay, let's get into it. Let's talk about buying your first home. These are the steps you need to know when you're moving into your first home. Now, the first thing you need to do is decide, do I need to buy or do I need to rent? If you're already renting,
Does it work out for you? Is it something that helps you financially? Is buying actually the best situation for you? If so, then we can start going into the steps of what you need to do once you finally make that decision and you decide this is what I want to do. I want to buy a home. So, first thing you need to do, and the most important thing probably, is to fix your credit. You don't want to have a whole bunch of outstanding judgments. You don't want to have a whole bunch of bills you haven't paid. You don't want to have to look on there and see you're late on everything. First thing that I would do is to take care of your credit, first and foremost. Now, there are ways that you can fix your credit. First thing you need to know is you need to get your credit score. You need to find out what your credit score is. You need to find out what you have on it and get very familiar with it. Now, the messed up thing about credit reports is sometimes it's like looking in the mirror, and it can scare you a little bit. It can be very intimidating. It's like when those bills they add up and you just stop opening them because you don't even want to look at it. You don't want to look at what you owe. Well, you have to be honest with yourself. You got to look straight in your eyes and say, look, I want to buy a house. This is what I need to do to fix my credit. No matter how bad it is, if whatever the score is, you need to deal with it. Doesn't matter though, because credit can be fixed. And there's a lot of things you can do to fix your credit. Now, first thing you want to do is look at that credit report, examine it, see if there's anything on there that's over 7 years old. See if there's anything on there that's wrong. See if there's anything on there that could be somebody else's mistake. Somebody used your credit. It could be identity theft or something like that. Those things you can look into. And if you feel like, hey, I don't owe that money, you can dispute it. If it's over 7 years, you can dispute it. And you can see if maybe they can take it off your credit report. You could have paid something off and the company that you owed it to decided not to remove it. Some things like that can happen. Pretty easy. So you want to go in there, you want to look at that credit report, examine it, study it, get to know it. Another thing you need to do is you need to pay your bills on time. Now, when I talk about this buying a home thing, it's probably like a 1 year process before you even get to the point of looking at actually buying something. So depending on where your credit is at, depending on where you are financially, you might have to take your time with this thing. It may be a long process. You may be waiting until the next tax return, and then you can start to fix stuff. But in the meantime, you want to pay all those bills on time. Now, a trick that I use is I just go on auto pay. So if you got like credit cards or something like that, you can just put the minimum payment on there on auto pay because it reflects good upon you to be making on-time payments. On-time payments over time look very good in your credit report, and they score. They're weighted, very heavily weighted. So you want to pay all those bills on time, even if you can't pay more, even if you can't pay a whole lot on it. You at least want to get the minimum paid on it. So always have automatic payment for the minimum on bills that affect your credit report. Always at least have the minimum. I would say do a lot more than the minimum, as much as you possibly can, but at least you never have to worry about a late fee. At least you never have to worry about them reporting you because you didn't pay a bill on time. Next thing you need to do is you got to make a plan. You got to set this thing up. Like, you got to sit down and you got to write everything down, and you got to say, okay, all right, I got to fix this credit. This is what I need to do to fix it. I owe such and such amount, such and such amount. Which one am I going to take out first? Which one of these bills am I going to eliminate so that I can fix my credit report? Now, when you get your credit report, so if you got credit cards, in this day and age after the Obama administration, in this day and age, they pretty much tell you your credit report. You can just get that information just because you got a credit card. So I've got like one credit card account where they'll give you the Equifax or the TransUnion score, and they'll tell you what your credit score is, and they'll tell you what you got on your credit report. So you can look at that thing, and then you can start planning out, and you can simulate it. So you can put, say you owe $150 on a old credit card or something like that you never paid. You can put that in, say I'm put $100 onto that, and it can simulate what effect that's going to have with your credit score. So you can go through different items and see, like, okay, if I pay this much on that, if I put $1,000 there, that, it tells you how much you're paying for on your credit report, how much your credit score is going to go up as a result of those actions. So you got to make a plan. You got to decide, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and you got to stick with it. Pay. Pay. I can't stress that enough. You got to pay. You got to free up some available credit, because that also is going to look good on your credit report when you have available credit. So if you're maxed out on all your cards and you're maxed out to the limit on too much, that's going to reflect bad, because depending on what your credit score is, I would always recommend try to get your credit in the best shape you can possibly get it before you start the process of looking at getting into a house. Because the better your credit score is, the more you're going to save on interest, and the better opportunities you're going to have available to you as a result. So pay. Knock them bills out. Get all that old stuff, that delinquent stuff. Knock all that stuff out. Get it all out of there. And then you can get to the point where, okay, it's time for me to start looking at houses. Now, when I say looking at houses, I don't really mean go in and say I'm going to buy. Maybe you can do like home shows, open houses, things like to that nature. You probably don't want to get to the point where you're saying I'm ready to buy, because you're not there yet. But you do want to have a good idea of what you need, what you want. How many bedrooms are you going to need? How many bathrooms? 1 story, 2 story. You got to start researching homes and see what works out for you, and then you can get a better idea of what you might want. You can go on a few websites. There are websites out there like Zillow, Realtor.com, and then you can look at different houses in different areas. Thank God for the internet, right? So you can be in a whole lot of different places all at once as a result of these things. So you can get on Zillow.com. They'll tell you a lot of information on Zillow, Realtor. They'll give you a lot of information about the neighborhood, about the school district, about the comps of the prices of other homes in that area, in that neighborhood. See what they're going for. See if what this house is priced at is a fair price. And then you can get some learning. You get a little bit of knowledge before you actually start the process, because you know more. And you know, like, all right, this house isn't worth that. That shouldn't cost that much. Okay, for a house with 3 bedrooms in it, it should go for this. So you'll start learning, and you'll start getting a whole lot of information from these websites. Now, these websites can't be a gauge on how much a house costs, or maybe the market, but you can use it as like a template to get started. The next thing you can do is the multiple listing service. They call it the MLS. Realtors and your agents are going to have access to that. So what's going to happen is, if you look on Zillow and Realtor, depending on the market, a lot of times those houses have kind of been on there for a little while. That MLS will have houses when they first hit immediately. Now, we're not at the stage right now as far as looking to buy immediately. But the Realtor and the Zillow, that's the early stage. Once you get to the late stage, that MLS, and you've got a good agent, they'll send you a list from the MLS when the houses first hit. So those will be available before they hit the market. And so you kind of get a sneak peek at the homes that are going to be coming available. And that's a good thing to have, because it's expensive. If you're just an individual, you don't want to pay to have that access to that listing service. So when you talk to your agent, you talk to your realtor, they'll have an idea of what you want at that point, and then they can send you different recommendations as they come out or as they're released. Now, at this point, it's time for you to start saving some money. You're probably already saving if you already decided to buy a home, but you do need to start saving. But the thing is, how much money do you need? How much is it going to cost you? How much do you need in the bank to get started? Of course, that's going to be dependent on how much the home is that you're buying. So there are a few things you need to take into consideration when you talk about buying this home. Down payment. You're going to have to make a down payment on the home. Depending on how much much is required based on your loan. So that could be up down as low as 3%. That could be up to 20%, depending on what you want to do. But you do have to have the down payment first and foremost. The next thing is you might have to make a good faith payment. So when you get to the point you see a house you like, it's like, all right, I want to buy. Make the offer on it, and they say, okay, we'll take the offer. So you're gonna need possibly some good faith money, maybe I don't know, $500 or something like that. But you gotta put something down on it, just so that they know, like, all right, you're serious about buying it. Closing costs. Closing costs, you can shop around for closing costs. Title companies probably got one on every side of town. So you can shop around, see who's got the best price on that. Hopefully your agent will find you the best deal for closing costs. You may have to get an appraisal. It's probably a great idea to get an appraisal to know that is this house worth the money they're asking for it? Do I really need to pay this amount for this home? Once you do the appraisal, you find out if it's really worth it. If it's not worth it, you might need to do some negotiating. You need to have a conversation and see if that appraisal matches up with the price. Then there's this thing, I call it like a 20% rule. So most people say you need to pay 20% down on the home. 20% will get you out of what's called a mortgage insurance. So you charge mortgage insurance in case you default. So 20% of the cost of the house would be great to have. In some cases, you won't have it probably though, right? So in that case, you gotta do what you gotta do. But 20%, that'll save you some money if you can put 20% down on the home. All right, insurance. You do have to pay for homeowners insurance. Homeowners insurance is also something you can shop around for. You can get good prices. Like I said before, your agent may already know what the best rates are, so they may find them for you. So that'll be a good thing if you got the agent to go at bat for you on some of those things. I just mentioned earlier the mortgage insurance is called the PMI. If you don't have 20% equity or 20% on the down payment, you're going to have to pay what's called that mortgage insurance. So that's something that they're going to take out. It's going to come out with your payment, along with taxes, property tax, insurance, the PMI, and then the mortgage itself, the mortgage for the cost of the house. So when you go to these websites and stuff, they'll have advertisements for banks, and they'll say mortgage on this home is $678 a month, but they're not taking into account taxes. They're not taking into account PMI. They're not taking into account insurance. So that number can be deceiving, but you do got to realize you're going to have those other numbers that are going to come into account as well. Now, next thing you have to decide is how you're going to pay for it. You're going to pay cash. You're going to get a mortgage. You're going to tap the 401k or something like that. I wouldn't recommend that probably. But you got to decide how you're going to pay for it. You got several options with mortgages. First one is the fixed interest rate. Fixed interest rate mortgage is just what it says it is. It's fixed. That's your interest rate today. That will remain your interest rate until the end of the period. So you say you buy it today, 20 years later, that interest rate will not change. That's fixed. Variable interest rate. Variable interest rate a little bit different because you can win and you can lose on the variable interest rate. So you can get that variable interest rate today. It may be 2%. But if the market changes, they'll change the interest rate on you. So you'll be paying a bill. It's been a year and a half, and then one day your bill's going to go up because the variable interest rate, it changed on you. So you can win, you can lose, but it's a gamble with the variable interest rate. At least with the fixed interest rate, you know how much you're going to be paying. The variables can go up and down. Sometimes it can be in your favor. Sometimes it can not be in your favor. So you got to gauge that and decide what's best for you, because the variable interest rate may look low today, but it can jump up any day. you got two different terms on mortgages. The 15-year mortgage. It's probably recommended to go with the 15-year mortgage because you're going to save a whole lot of money. 15 years compounding against 30 years compounding. You're going to save a whole lot of money. The thing is, can you afford it? So a lot of times when you buy a house, you probably want to buy yourself something really nice that you're going to want to be comfortable in, as opposed to buy something that you can extremely afford and then pay on top of it. So that's when a 30-year mortgage comes into play, where you can probably get something that costs you a little bit more, but you can still have a lower payment per month. So 15-year or the 30-year, you got to decide which one is best for you. Again, 15 years is going to save you money. 30-year, you can keep your money in your pocket now. You can use it towards other things. Now, there's this other thing called points, where they kind of charge you for the interest rate. This is like a little hidden box. You're going to get like this paperwork. It's going to tell you your interest rate. It's going to tell you your term and all that. And it's going to give you all the details, the closing costs, the insurance. It's going to give you all the details. And then there's going to be a little thing on it, possibly called points, where they're going to charge you a certain amount of money to get certain interest rates. Like say that your credit isn't A1 or something like that. Or they maybe just do it, even if you do got credit, just so you can get a better looking number on your interest rate. That's one of those tricky little things you got to pay attention for. See if they charge how much they charge you in points, because that could cost you a few extra $1,000 easy on those points to get those different interest rates. That's why I say have your credit in the best shape that you can possibly have it at the beginning, and then you probably don't have to worry about stuff like that. But if you're in that position, just know that they might be charging you for those things. They also got programs out there. It's Veterans Day coming up, so coming up on celebrating our war vets, and they got programs for veterans. So if you've been in the military, they got programs where they can get great interest rates for veterans. They also got other programs based on your income that can help you buy. FHA loans, those have lower down payments required at the beginning. But locally, a lot of times, your states and your local governments will incentivize buying homes, and they'll have all these programs. That's another thing that your agent should tell you about, these programs and everything that you can take advantage of. If it's your first home, there's probably some kind of program for that if you're a first-time home buyer. If you want to live in maybe a rural area, sometimes they have incentives based on which part of town you live in. So you need to look out for those things. You can just go online and see what's going on in your personal state. But local programs, they're going to exist, and you're going to have those other programs like for the state or federal programs even. Now, this is probably something I should have hit earlier, but I've already mentioned it several times. But hire an agent. Find an agent. Find somebody who can help you through this process, who can walk through this thing with you. This is a person that's going to have time for you. Some agents get really busy, and you can't creep into their schedule. So you got to find somebody who's going to have time for you, going to be able to let you know what's going on, send you those MLS listings, somebody that's going to be there when you want to go look at a home, so they're going to lock it so you can go in there and look. And then with all the financial stuff, so a good agent is going to more than likely help you engage where your credit's at, tell you about what price range you need to be in based on your income. They're going to have experience, and they're going to understand how to get through this process, and they should be able to help you through it. Now, also, you want to find a comfortable budget that works for you. You want to only pay as much as you can pay, not necessarily as much as you're able to pay, but you want to leave enough room that in case something happens, you still got some money left over. Also, when you start looking at homes, you start liking things, and it's like, wow, I would like to have that amenity. I might like to have that. And the price is going to start going up on you. And you're have to decide, do I want to pay more than what I originally decided? Because as you look at houses and you look at different properties, you're going to start liking it and start wanting more possible. So, or if you start off too high and look at something very, very nice and is way out of your price range, you may be flexible and you may move the budget. Try to stick to the budget. Understand how much you want to put into the home and how much you want to be able to have left over for other expenses, because you never know what will happen. But you got to be firm on that budget. Of course, the agent is going to make more money based on the price of the home you buy, right? So you got to be pretty solid on that. The next thing you need to do, just find one. Find a home. Start looking, start visiting. Yeah, buy this one maybe. The Palace. Yeah, so you start visiting, you start looking, and you find one that you like. At that point, we got to the end of it, and it's like, all right, it's time to make an offer. Make them an offer that can refuse. Make a good offer, make a solid offer, but also make the offer in your favor. You might get an opportunity. If you're too low, you might get an opportunity to give a second offer. That's not necessarily meaning that you need to go higher, because you don't know what the other offers were, right? So you got to try to make it fair for yourself. The person that's selling the house, they're going to try to get as much out of it as they can, so you don't want to lowball them. But at the same time, you don't want to get ripped off either, so you want to be fair about it. So last thing is going to be to make that offer. Hopefully they take your offer, and then you can go on with the process, and then you'll be spending another 3 to 4 weeks in the closing process, and then that's a long process. That's more stressful. The closing process, you got to have all this documentation, so be keeping up with all your pay stubs, your taxes. And good thing about now is everything's just online. You just go to the website and just pick that stuff up. Most jobs are gonna have your pay stubs online, because nobody really gets a paycheck anymore. So get those pay stubs, get some tax forms. They're gonna ask for all kinds of information. So be ready to have that documentation ready for when the time comes that you want to go through this closing process. Another thing that you got to keep in mind is you got to have some money saved, because you can't make any major purchases, because it could affect your credit report. So they're going to tell you can't buy anything big until the house is closed on. That sucks sometimes, because sometimes you need something, or you got to, something goes out and you got to replace it. So that's a tough situation to be in, but you're not going to be able to spend much of your money. I don't know, maybe keep some cash over to the side, but they're going to have records of your bank statements. They're going to ask you for your checking account. They're going to look at all your transactions. Yeah, they kind of like strip you naked and like take a look at your whole body of everything, So it's a very invasive process when you get to the closing point. It's annoying. It's uncomfortable. It takes forever. So keep that in mind, that's the worst part of the process. That's the least fun, is going through the closing process. Looking is fun. Bargaining and finding homes and looking at them and all that part is fun. When you get to closing, that's when it starts to suck.
All right, so that's a wrap. That's that. Went over everything as far as a mortgage. Went over looking for a house. Went over finding a house, making an offer on the house. Went over everything that you need to know about going and buying your first home. So, first of all, I want to wish you good luck. Second of all, always stay focused. If that's what you want, if that's your goal, go out and get it. Go out there and make it happen. All right. This was Stark Reality. I want to thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you. Also, I want to thank you for your continued support to the Drawing Board Nation, to everybody who's going to be doing a broadcast over these next few weeks. Please continue to support everything that everybody else is doing. Support my man Andre and everything he's doing. He's trying to do a lot of great things for a lot of people. So thank you for supporting. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you gained something. Hopefully if you didn't gain anything, hopefully it was entertainment. Always get your knowledge up. So whatever endeavor. Oh yeah, I didn't talk about building houses, but that's a smooth way to get exactly what you want out of the home. So just go into it and say I want this and build it, from the bottom up. So that's not always the worst option. You can buy a piece of land and get with a builder and you decide what you want to do. But that's another few minutes or whatever to talk about. But I'll let it go. You can research that. You can research anything. Any of the information I talked about is all available online. You can get it from anywhere. You can get it from any real estate professional. It's all general knowledge. But thank you for tuning in. I'm not going to hold it any longer. Have a good one.